what a great opportunity it is to be able to be here and to honor these men and women. We hope that you'll join us for the entire show and enjoy the camaraderie, the honor, the fun, the entertainment, and Governor Pete Wilson here to speak with us tonight, previous governor of the state of California. It is Military Ball. Pierre Claessens made sure this happened every year, and it's still happening. Thank you, Pierre. And thank you to the Woods Claessens Foundation for all you do for our community and for our servicemen and women.
Santa Barbara Naval Aid has adopted the wonderful U.S. Air Force 30th Ops Group.
We're glad to be here. Thanks for having us.
Military Ball 2009, representing our Coast Guard, both our commanding officers of MSD and the USS Blackfin. Welcome aboard.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much for the invitation. Appreciate it.
We also have MSD.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much. It's nice to be here.
And Santa Barbara, whenever you're down in the harbor, I want you to give a salute and a shout out to all the men and women that serve in the finest United States Coast Guard unit in the United States. And I just saw Commandant Thad Allen and told him that personally.
Oh, good.
Military Ball 2009 is just shaping up to be one of the most impressive events I've ever seen in Santa Barbara. Here with Karen Crawford, the president of the Navy League of the United States Santa Barbara Council. Support our troops is your motto.
Oh, I love our troops, and we're so glad to be here tonight. And if you take a quick look at how full these tables are, this is a successful event. We have people who are veterans from World War II, from Vietnam, from Korea, and the Gulf Wars. We also have our active duty here, and it just touches your heart to be able to see these fine men and women.
We also have a Marine colonel who served as a Marine, a China Marine, Guadalcanal. When you talk about the history of the United States and what you call Major Tough, these guys are it. And this is the first year that the Military Ball has had more active duty service members than veterans and retired.
And they are so appreciative to be here. They're touched by the invitation to come, whether they're from Naval Base Ventura County or Vandenberg Air Force Base or our local U.S. Coast Guard Marine Safety Detachment in Blackfin. We have Army ROTC from UCSB. We've got a great group of people. We also have the U.S. Marine Corps, the unit that is up in Goleta to tell people about what the Marines do. What is that called?
Well, we have a base from San Luis Obispo.
Yes.
San Luis Obispo group, and you know, this is just promises to be one of the greatest shows, the greatest military balls ever held here. So we really look forward to you joining us for this show. So sit back and relax and help us honor those who served our country so well.
Well, Hazel, it's another Military Ball 2009 at the wonderful Doubletree. You've done such a wonderful job with Pierre Claesson's Military Ball for so many years. Can you tell us what this year means to you and anything else that you might inform us about having to do with the Military Museum and Library?
Well, thank you, Doug. Yep, we're going on, this is the 14th year, and we have former Governor Pete Wilson with us and his wife, and they got a great Santa Barbara welcome here today with a great Veterans Day Parade. Lots of crowds, flyover, and we've got a record number of guests tonight, 580. Probably 300 are active duty in their dates or their guests, so we're really happy about that. And that's due to the Wood Claesson's Foundation and Pierre's ongoing gift. And
Pierre Claesson's legacy lives on so much in part to what you and John Blankenship, your husband, do. And we just want to thank you for the wonderful, wonderful contributions to this community, and certainly, most importantly, to all of the men and women who have served and are serving in our armed forces. The name Blankenship is now synonymous with the Military Ball, as is Pierre Claesson's, and we'd just like to say thank you very much.
well, thank you, Doug, and thank you and your wife, Karen, and the Santa Barbara Navy League for being co-sponsors and for combining two organizations in town. Usually hard to do, but we managed to do it, and so it's great. Everybody benefits, all the veterans, all the active duty, and we love it. And this is a very special town because of it.
Well, and we feel the same way with the Navy League. It's a partnership that makes what we're trying to do actually extra special, and that is to honor those who have served our nation. So again, thank you very much.
Thank you, Doug.
Good evening. Very well.
Oh, I know General Rogers real good.
Well, we're here at the Military Ball 2009, and one of the legacy members, if you will, of Pierre Claesson's Military Ball is Command Sergeant Major Fortis. And thank you for being here. And what does this Military Ball mean to you?
Well, I'm glad to see that they're remembering the veterans from all wars. There's some younger men here, younger soldiers, I should say, even some women veterans who I'm glad to see. And for us old fogies, I guess it is, we like to meet with the young ones and see what they're doing. And it's nice to be remembered.
Well, we know what the discussion was about the greatest generation. We know what the sacrifices were that were made in Korea and Vietnam and both Gulf Wars. And the whole part of the Military Ball is to be able to honor all of you, all of us, all of our greatest men and women. And we thank you so much for your service, more importantly for your leadership.
Oh, well, my nephew here, he's a sergeant major in the Marine Corps. And we always got to kid each other.
A true service family
Yeah,
across branches.
Sure is. And my wife, who is a dame in the Order of the British Empire. Do you know what a dame is?
I'm afraid to say. What do
Okay.
you tell me?
A lady cannot be a knight, but a lady can have the same rank. They couldn't call her Sir Joan,
Okay.
so they call her Dame Joan. She's dame in the Order of the British Empire.
Well,
Her work in London during the war, it's all for war work.
wonderful stories of human sacrifice and dedication to our country. We thank you for all you've done and continue to do.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you talking to me.
And your Sea Cadet, you attend every Sea Cadet celebration, the young people. Anything you got to shout out there to the young people, anything you'd like to tell them about?
Well, remember their history, and the young people get the best education you can, because you're going to be running this country pretty soon. And let's don't lose the country, because it took us a long time, and A number of men have died to keep it like it is, and we want to keep it this way, especially for those who passed on.
Amen. It's all about service to country. Thank you very much, Sergeant Major.
Thank you.
Well, the Military Ball 2009 would not have been what it was without General Lopez here in one of our favorite sons in Santa Barbara, and having a great military career with the United States military, the United States Marine Corps. And tonight's event has been really keynoted by Pete Wilson's talking about young people, and you know, I've seen you speaking twice now, once at the Sunken Gardens regarding Veterans Day with young people all around, and again tonight speaking to the whole issue of freedom is not free and peace through strength. General Lopez, a message that you might be able to give to our young people in Santa Barbara about what your career has meant to you.
Well, the people that I've met in the service and in the Marine Corps have been some of the finest people I've ever known. And I've learned a lot from them in terms of patriotism, courage, honesty, perseverance. They've taught me all that. And I would say that to experience this is a worthwhile thing to do. To be able to meet all the people that you will when you join the military, and the adventures and the experiences where you have is something you'll treasure for the rest of your life. And I believe firmly that one of the reasons that we live here is because of the freedoms that we have, and I think it's important that we give back to the country as much as they've given us. And this is my way of being able to do that, and I would encourage all citizens to be able to do that, whether you serve in the military or some other purpose, to give back to your country, and as a very normal cause.
Well, sir, there's no better representation than the Marine Corps, and the proof that that is exactly what the Marine Corps is all about, Semper Fidelis, and the idea that you have a corps of young people as well as a corps of never ever an ex-Marine, only a former Marine.
That's right.
Well, thank you, sir, very much for your service to our country and for your leadership in our community. And I'd like to present you with the Santa Barbara coin, Santa Barbara Navy League,
right,
supporting the Marine Corps,
well,
the Navy, the Coast Guard, and by the way, the Merchant Marines, the Air Force, and the Army, now that we have joint command.
That's all of them. Okay.
All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Really, sir, thank you very much.
Great.
Likewise, thank you, sir.
Appreciate it.
Well, the Military Ball is all about honoring the men and women who have served and are serving our country. And can you tell us who you are, where you're from, and what it means to you to be in the service of our nation?
Absolutely. I'm Chief Master Sergeant Steve McConnell, and this is my wife, Leanna. And we're here from Vandenberg Air Force Base, and we're just thrilled to be here, hosted by Santa Barbara. And I'd just like to say thank you. I've been in for 28 years. My wife has been with me for 27 of those years, and I would just like to thank her, and especially the other military spouses who are out there who sacrifice so much. The folks in uniform really do get a lot of credit, and I think the spouses are left behind sometimes without a lot of attention. So thanks to those folks, and thank you for having us.
Well, it's a real honor. The Santa Barbara Council, it's called the Navy League, which it is, but we have made a special effort to be able to honor the men and women of all of the services and their families. And so that's what our organization here in Santa Barbara and the Tri-Counties is dedicated to doing, and we're adopting a unit up in Vandenberg as well, and we've adopted an Army unit, and we've got Marine units and ships adopted, and it's all about what you do for us, and we thank you both so much. Can't speak enough to what you just said about service and the spouses. So.
That's for sure. And one last little shout out. My son is in the Coast Guard. He's been in for all of 6 months, and he's on the Polar Sea, which is an icebreaker. It's up in the Arctic right now. So hello to my son, Stephen.
Well, you've got a very special family, and our country is greatly indebted to your service family indeed, and we thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank you very much. Thanks for coming.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed as the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming.
Lieutenant J.G., and Reverend Charles Griffith.
We pray together. Gracious God, 'tis the season for Thanksgiving. And the reason for that Thanksgiving, I say, can be California. The state where we live and move and have our being is simply great. California is big and beautiful, bountiful and busy. What more could we ask? It is a world leader in imagination, invention, and inspiration. From Gold Rush days to Silicon Valley, open minds have looked westward. And when the call came to confront global enemies, California organized and trained and sent thousands, with many sacrificed on foreign soil. So we can be thankful for our past and strong for our future, remembering what good old Shakespeare said. God's goodness has been great to thee. Let never day nor night unhallowed pass, but still remember what the Lord has done. Amen.
Amen. We retire the colors.
As you entered the banquet hall this evening, you might have noticed a small table in a place of honor. It is set for one. This table is our way of symbolizing the fact that members of our profession of arms are missing from our midst. They are commonly called POWs or MIAs. We call them brothers and sisters. They are unable to be with us this evening, and so we remember them. This table is set for one, symbolizing the frailty of one prisoner alone against his oppressors. Remember, the tablecloth is white, symbolizing the purity of their intentions to respond to their country's call to arms. Remember, the single red rose displayed in a vase reminds us of the families and loved ones of our comrades in arms who kept their faith awaiting their return. Remember, the red ribbon is tied so prominently on the vase is reminiscent of the red ribbon worn upon the lapel and breast of thousands who bear witness to their unyielding determination to defend a proper accounting of their missing. Remember, the candle. The candle is lit, symbolizing the upward reach of their unconquerable spirit. Remember, a slice of lemon is on the bread plate to remind us of their bitter fate. Remember, there is salt upon the bread plate as well, symbolic of the family's tears as they wait. Remember, the glass is inverted. They cannot toast with us tonight. Remember, the chair is empty. They are not here. Remember, all of you who served with them and called them comrades, who depend upon their might and aid and rely upon them, for surely they have not forsaken you. Remember, until the day that they come home. Remember. May we please pause for a moment.
Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce the Mayor, Senator, Governor, Presidential candidate, and Marine Lieutenant Pete Wilson.
Thank you very much, Dan. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for that very warm welcome. Dan, before I go on, I bring you warm greetings from one of your distinguished former speakers at this event, B.X. Kelly. I spoke to him him about an hour before the event began tonight. He sends his warm greetings. He said it was one of the most pleasant experiences he's had, and wishes you continued success. And I must tell you that I think I'm particularly fortunate to be here this evening. When I came, I did not realize that two of my longtime friends were to be honored tonight. One, John Blankenship, just received a wonderful award and an honor, and shortly, Elmer Coons. I am truly delighted to be back in Santa Barbara. It has been a place of great hospitality, great support, and as I learned again today, in the Veterans Parade down State Street, it is a community that still honors veterans and recognizes how much is owed to those in uniform now and to those who have been in uniform. So tonight, to the officers and men presently serving, and to those who have worn the uniform of the United States, you have my salute, my gratitude. I am very proud to be in your company. Now, some of you, like Elmer, whom I've known for a long time, expressed some concern when I left public office. The thought was that I had been there long enough. It might have become sort of ingrained to expect certain things, and I might find it difficult to return to civilian life. Well, I always said to all those that expressed that concern, not to worry. My wife was particularly concerned with my returning to the wheel after 8 years in which I'd been driven around. And when we actually left office, we moved into a condo that we've been keeping in Los Angeles, discovered that our new neighbors had an absolutely charming, captivating little granddaughter about 5 years old. And this child was so charming that Gail and I used to make up excuses, really, to spend time with her, to take her on errands. And she would been in the car with Gail, other times with me, other times with both of us. One time, not too long ago, she was out with Gail, alone, just the two of us in the car. They were out on the freeway, and after about 5 minutes, this little girl's childish treble, very clear, broke the silence, and she said to Gail, "Mrs. Wilson, where are all the bastards?" Those of you who know Gail know that she was not one to pass up a straight line. She said, "Oh, don't worry, honey, they only come out when the governor is driving." What I want to talk to you tonight about is what I witnessed today, what I have witnessed with great pleasure, is the return, it seems to me, of the kind of appreciation of those wearing the uniform that for some time had disappeared. I will simply say I was embarrassed, chagrined, and angered at the treatment of Vietnam veterans when they came home. I think it was shameful. I think it was inexcusable. And I am very pleased to see that America is acknowledging the debt we owe. law school up in Berkeley. One of my friends, one of my classmates, was a fellow Marine Corps lieutenant. We had served at the same time but hadn't known each other on active duty. And Bert was a wonderful guy. He was from Brooklyn. He had a deep basso profundo voice, and he was outspoken. We were political opposites, but I liked him a lot. We were good friends. One day, we went walking from the law school down campus, and just as we came up to Sproul Hall, which was sort of the student square for all kinds of announcements, events, here was a kid up on a table with about 50 people around him. And if we drew near enough to hear what he was saying, we heard him say, "My father fought in the First World War, and he was terribly wounded, and I asked you for what?" And he said, "My older brother was in the Second World War, and was terribly wounded, and I asked you for what?" And he said, "Just now my middle brother was wounded in Korea, and I asked you for what?" And Bert, without taking his hands out of his pockets, in a parade ground voice said, "So you could stand up there and make a horse's ass of yourself." And it had a predictable effect. Suddenly, the 50 people around this kid erupted in laughter and then evaporated, and he was up there on the table by himself. Now, I must tell you that he was not alone. There are people who I think simply do not understand. And some of them have worn the uniform, some of them in good faith and the best intentions are anti-war. They have a right to express that opinion. I have a right not only to disagree with him, tell them why I think it is naive and dangerous. And it is because there is evil in the world. And those who don't recognize it and who do not act to confront it find, as Winston Churchill warned once, that if they don't do so early, their troubles will return much magnified. And that is, of course, what we have learned in the last 100 years. The major event of the last century was World War II. The most important event. Had it gone wrong, it would have been not only the most important event of that century, but of the next several. And the fact of the matter is, the people who fought that war, including those whom we've honored here tonight, mostly were eager to get back home and get on with their lives. Many of them didn't want to even talk about it. Didn't want to tell their children, didn't want to talk to their grandchildren. But the fact is, the nation owed him a tremendous debt of gratitude, and we were very late recognizing that and honoring that obligation. Now, I'm here tonight not only to thank you for the invitation to be with you and to speak to you, but also because of the effort which is being made, which John was honored here this evening. I never had the pleasure, the honor of knowing here at Bison, but I do know the impulse that you felt, that many of you are eager to bring to realization. Because I've spent the last 4 or 5 years working on behalf of the Labor of Love, the National World War II Museum in New Orleans. Typically, when I tell people that, they say, "Why New Orleans? I mean, if that's great, but why New Orleans? We thought it was in Washington, D.C." And I explained that no, what you see in Washington on the mall is a memorial. A memorial long overdue, one that is not just fitting, but something that this nation, at a minimum, owed the people who fought and won that war. But the reason that the museum is in New Orleans, the primary reason is because of someone whom I think many of you have read as an author, Stephen Ambrose. Stephen Ambrose, of course, wrote these wonderful books that were so remarkably popular, that told the story of the European theater in World War II. And they were very personalized histories, because that was how Steve wrote. He took hundreds, even I think thousands, of oral histories, and those were woven into his books. Well, the reason that the museum, now designated by Congress as the official World War II museum, is in New Orleans is because for 20 years, Steve Ambrose could not interest the Congress of the United States in doing something to honor the veterans of World War II on the Mall in Washington. They were too busy, they had other priorities. So one afternoon, on Saturday afternoon, sitting in his backyard with his then junior colleague, now the president of the museum, Nick Gilbert, he said, "It is a disgrace. This nation has done nothing to recognize, much less to celebrate and honor, the people who fought and won that war, the most important event of this century." So, after all of those years without succeeding, he said, "You know, the time has come, we're going to do it right here in New Orleans. We've got a business community that are patriots. They are sound business people. I'm sure that we can get them interested." Well, I won't say before you know it, because it took a long time. But in 2000, on June 6th, the doors opened on what was then called the D-Day Museum. And to begin with, it simply told the story of the Normandy invasion and what followed from it. It has grown in scope. It has told the story of the Pacific War. The point really is simply this. This nation is the best, the most full of opportunity, because we enjoy something that most of us take for granted: freedom. And the young people in particular need to understand that they are free to become all that they can be, all that they can become through hard work and taking advantage of opportunity that is not available in many places in the world. So we have undertaken what you are undertaking here on this coast. That is really an educational institution, because what we think is that when you talk to intelligent youngsters in their teens and they betray a total ignorance of World War II, that is not an acceptable situation. Santayana said that those that ignore history are doomed to repeat its mistakes. And too many times in our history that has been true. The first person who I think actually delivered forcefully the message that freedom is not free was the 6th President of the United States, John Quincy Adams. And he said, very simply, to a group of young people whom he was addressing in his own time, he said, "I hope that you know how high the cost has been for my generation to preserve your freedom. I hope you use it wisely." That's putting it pretty simple. Since that time, one generation after another of young Americans, including the current remarkably courageous young men and women on the field of battle for this country, Iraq, Afghanistan, other places where we may be threatened, have in every instance bequeathed to all the rest of us at the greatest cost the precious gift of freedom. Not too long ago, I read an editorial, and it said, the American military is at war, while America is at the mall. And friends, that's not good enough. And we've got to make certain that these young people, through no fault of their own, change from being blissfully ignorant of the heritage that they have and the debt that they owe. We have got to make certain that they understand what it is that they have inherited. The freedom is not free, that they owe their grandfathers and grandmothers a tremendous debt of gratitude. And the way they can repay it is by taking that precious freedom that others do not enjoy and making, as John Quincy Adams asked of them, that they use it wisely. And they can use it in many ways that would gratify those who gave so much to give it to them. We have young people who will today, as they graduate from high school, go on and someday expand the frontiers of human knowledge and expand the quality of life. In science, medicine, we will have people who win victories in court. We will have people who win victories of all kinds. But you know something? Basically, they must never forget the people who have given their all on the field of battle and purchased the freedom for them to become all that they can be. Now, I'm an old Marine. I think I'm probably the oldest Marine lieutenant living. But I will simply tell you this, the Army has a great slogan. Be all that you can be. And it's possible to be all that you can be in the United States because of the courage of all those who have worn the uniform of all branches of the service. Recently in the Bay Area, I was in a rented car, impatiently waiting for the car in front of me to decide what it was going to do. I had to have patience. I looked down, and on the bumper sticker, or there was a bumper sticker on the bumper that said, "I'm against the next war." And I thought, I wonder if the driver was against World War II. I wonder if they were against the isolationism of the United States, the unpreparedness that allowed us to enter World War II with an army that ranked right behind Romania. And it was only because of the incredible ability of this nation, of free men and women, to mobilize not only manpower but materiel, that we stunned the Axis powers and produced a war machine that they could not duplicate. We're honoring the United States Army Air Corps tonight as we honor Elmer Koontz. The U.S. Army Air Corps, predecessor of the U.S. Air Force, did an incredible job. They not just supported the troops on the ground, but they bombed the German war effort in Libya. In the Pacific, they demoralized the Japanese on their homeland. None of that was something that we had planned to do. We were attacked. But what we should learn from that is what I think a great president should have taught us, and I think he did. Ronald Reagan was a truly nice man. Didn't hold grudges. But he also believed in what he termed peace through strength. It's not simply a slogan. What he was really telling us is that through our history we have repeated as democracies, not just the United States, but in the 30s, the United Kingdom, put our heads in the sand, not recognizing evil when it was directly in front of us. And the result has been that in every generation, those courageous young Americans, many of whom paid the ultimate sacrifice, did so because we had invited a tragic miscalculation on the part of those willing to do evil and thinking that the United States was not prepared, not strong enough in arms, or clear enough in our resolve to use those arms, and therefore they took the chance of taking us on. That happened at Pearl Harbor. They learned the hard way. We were late into the war. That war, World War II, had a very high cost. Over 60 million lives worldwide, including 400,000 young Americans who never came home. So when I see that bumper sticker that says, "I'm against the next war," so am I. But the best way to prevent it is to be so clear in terms of the objective manifestation of our strength militarily, and in terms of our will to use that strength if we must, that we don't allow anyone to make that kind of miscalculation. And even in this time of terrorism, when there are suicide bombers, those who direct them are rational. If the cost is too high, I do not think they will make that same miscalculation. The sad fact is that we were all born in a country that values peace, but hopefully values freedom more. Because what we were told when we were instructed that we should pursue peace through strength is that if it's not through strength, the peace won't last very long. And peace without freedom simply does not make sense. Not in the American tradition. That's why I am so grateful for the effort that has been made tonight to not just acknowledge but to celebrate the courage as well as the skill, the self-sacrifice of the men and women of our armed services, both those in the past, those in the present, and those in the future. I thought it was a fitting symbol tonight when a decorated hero, Sergeant Major of the Army, not only acknowledged our grandson, who was a Sergeant Major in the Marine Corps, but it was one generation passing the torch to another. Historically, a few have purchased freedom for the vast number of us. The reason that this museum, on the day that it opens, the reason for the museum in New Orleans, is not an exercise in nostalgia. We recently opened the Stage Door Canteen. It was great fun. The stars of the 40s were all over the walls, on the tapes. But this is not an exercise in nostalgia. It's an educational institution. The one good thing about our being late and recognizing and acknowledging the debt we owe is that through the miracle of modern technology, through distance learning, through the internet, we are going to be able to take your museum and the museum in New Orleans, and the museum, the Nimitz Museum in Texas, to kids in classrooms who will never come anywhere near Santa Barbara or Texas or New Orleans. We can take it to kids on a ranch in Montana, or for that matter, kids in a classroom in Berlin or Beijing. That is what this museum, I think, is all about. Because heroism should be thanked, should be celebrated, but if we're smart enough to educate a next generation in the need for strength, strength of character, strength in arms, and strength in resolve, then we will not have any more tragic miscalculations, because you honor that tradition with evenings like this, with Brave Day, and with that museum that is about to take place, I hope. I celebrate you, the citizens of Santa Barbara. You understand, make sure the kids do, this generation, and the next, and the next, and the next. God bless you.
Thank you, Pete. We want to thank you for coming to Santa Barbara and honoring our vets and all of our active duty personnel. And I want to present you with a picture of an ancient Marine warrior. This is the ancient Marine warrior. I know you've got a lot of plaques and those kinds of things, and I have something very special for you.
I was never that young.
We were all young once. Okay, what I have here, ladies and gentlemen, are 2 bottles of wine, of which you can take home with you or do whatever you want with them, but they're some of the most famous wines from our region. One of them is called Fighter Pilot Red. Okay, it is really coveted, especially by Air Force people, so it's hard to come across. The second one is Jarhead Red. Now the thing about these wines, ladies and gentlemen, and this is a warning to you, Pete, you can't have both bottles in the same 24 hours. It's been known to lead to riots and wars and mass migrations. But I want to talk about the effects of people, and I can't talk about the effects of Fighter Pilot Red because we can't talk about it tonight, but I can talk about Jarhead Red because Brooks Firestone, who's the winery that produced this, did a study on how it affects the different services. I'm not making this up.
Yeah, right.
First of all, the Coast Guard, upon consuming a bottle of Jarhead Red, immediately go to sleep. Now for the Army, it's quite the opposite. Upon consuming a bottle of Jarhead Red, they grab picks and shovels and start digging. They dig trenches, foxholes, and gun emplacements in a frenzy, even though in their front yard. Now for the Air Force, they let all the inhibitions go and they start looking for aircraft carriers. They have been known to try to land on the oil derricks in our channel. And in fact, I think the 2 pilots that went past Minneapolis were actually Air Force guys. And then they were looking for an aircraft carrier somewhere in the Midwest, and we don't have any there. Now for the Navy, how does it affect the Navy? Is that they immediately jump off of whatever ship or boat they're on and start swimming for shore looking for a bar. Now I know you're waiting for the real one. What happens when the Marines, and they don't sip it, they chug it, they immediately start looking for a beach to assault. They've been known to be running through the surf yelling such phrases as Semper Fi, Gung Ho, and Hoorah! So Pete, I want you to take these, and I know that they're very special and that you'll treasure them, but if you decide to have the Jarhead Red tonight, I want to tell you, or in the morning, which I don't think you would, but there's a beach right outside your room, and I understand it's very lightly held.
Marines from San Luis Obispo and Governor, Mayor, and Presidential candidate, and Senator Pete Wilson. We've got what you call here the best and the baddest from San Luis Obispo. We have Marines from San Luis Obispo. Are you guys retired yet?
Yes.
Yes, you are.
Yes, I'm retired.
Well, what did you think about this evening's military ball?
I thought it was great.
Oh, I thought it was great.
All right.
I'd like to come again.
Okay,
If we
well,
could.
the Navy League in Santa Barbara would like to work with you all to make sure that everybody in both of our counties understands what the Marines stand for and why they ought to join. What do you think about that?
Thank you. Yes.
Can we have another ball next week?
Thank you guys for what you've done. And we've just had the honor, the wonderful honor of, I guess it's Senator, Governor, presidential candidate Pete Wilson, Marine Lieutenant, speaking to us about what it is that the service members today do, what the service members in the past have done, and what our country is destined to do. You'll be watching that on Santa Barbara Navy League TV. But Governor Wilson, would you please tell us what your service has meant to you and everything that you have done to promote and remembering those who have served?
Well, thanks. Okay, I've just come off a 3-year tour as the chairman of the trustees of the National World War II Museum. It's been time-consuming, but it's a labor of love, and there's a lot about it that brings pleasure, but basically the other trustees and I and the staff are doing it because we think it's so important that the next generation and the ones that follow understand that they can't take for granted the freedom that they enjoy. It is not free. Somebody purchased it for them and at very high cost, and they need to understand that.
The message has been very clear here. The military ball at this event is the largest event that we've ever had, and it's also a turning event because we've had more active duty service members here. It was wonderful to see the way they were listening and the way they wanted to talk to you, and thank you for giving that message afterwards. Is there a message that you can give to our young people here that what your military service meant to you and the things that you've achieved perhaps as a result of that?
Well, my father told my brother and me that we had an obligation to give back to our state and nation, and one of the ways that both he and I chose to do it was in the military. We were both in the Marine Corps. He was in World War II, and I must say that it is such a privilege to live in this country because we enjoy freedom that no one else does, but you can't take it for granted, and you have to work to make certain that your community is better, your state is better, but you've got to recognize there's evil in the world, and you need to confront it early. We didn't in past generations. We had courage, sacrifice, and unhappily, too late we engaged in many fights, and I want us to be so strong and so clear in the resolve to use our strength of arms if we must. We don't start these fights. The best way not to get engaged in them is to make it very clear that people who try to pick a fight with us will lose.
Peace through strength. We're in Santa Barbara. President Reagan's White House was here. Mikhail Gorbachev was here. Margaret Thatcher was here. Pete Wilson was here. We thank you, sir, one of California's greatest sons. We thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And for blessing us by being here tonight.
Oh, bless the Santa Barbara Navy League. You've got a lot to be very proud of.
The Navy League is the most dedicated civilian advocate for the U.S. Navy, Marine Corps, Coast Guard, and U.S. flagged merchant marine. Headquartered just outside our nation's capital, a major part of the Navy League's vital mission is educating the public, local and national elected officials, and policymakers about the importance of maintaining strong and effective maritime forces. Navy League's nonpartisan advocacy programs deliver critical information about the needs of the sea services and its men and women in uniform throughout the halls of Congress, with Sea Service program briefings for members of Congress and key staff. The annual Maritime Policy Statement highlights the needs of each of the sea services to ensure that they have the proper training and equipment to carry out their critical mission. The Navy League's monthly magazine, Sea Power, provides news and in-depth articles that focus on the important role of the U.S. Sea Services to the defense of our nation. Whether at home or abroad, the Navy League provides support to our men and women of the sea services around the world. Local councils adopt ships and units, providing morale and welfare support and assistance to their crews and their families. Navy League's prestigious awards recognize outstanding individuals for their leadership and accomplishments within the sea services and maritime industry, promoting leadership, professionalism, and morale. Homecoming ceremonies and ship visits are special events organized and sponsored by local councils, as are ship christenings and unit commissionings. With the help of individual and corporate members, the sea services become integrated into the local communities they serve and protect. In addition to providing support today to the men and women serving at home and abroad, the Navy League always looks to the future, to today's young people and tomorrow's leaders. Scholarship programs provide financial assistance to the dependents and direct descendants of Sea Service personnel. And Navy League-supported youth programs, such as the Naval Sea Cadet Corps and Navy and Marine Corps Junior ROTC, give thousands of young people the opportunity to develop leadership skills, test their limits, and perhaps prepare for a career in one of the sea services. The need for a strong, vital sea service, recognized by Theodore Roosevelt in 1902, is no less today. The challenges facing our nation have never been greater. More than 100 years later, the Navy League continues to answer the call. Your support makes a difference to our men and women of the sea services who serve today and will serve tomorrow in support of American sea power. As one Secretary of the Navy said, "The sun never sets on the Navy League."